Hi everybody, I am Paige. Welcome to my channel, Paperbacks and Lattes, and today I want to tell you all the books that I read in January. So I read 13 books in the month of January. This is my shortest reading month yet from all of last year. But it is just like my new normal now, so I guess I'm only getting 13 to 15 books read per month, but it's still good. It's good. I'm not reading like the 25 to 30 books that I was reading, but I'm still reading. I'm reading every day, and any amount of books read is good. So that is how many I got read. I have read 10 5-star books and I read 3 4-star books. So I really had an amazing month. I had so many good reads. I really enjoyed what I read, and so now let's go ahead and get started. I want to tell you what those reads are. So the first book I read in January was The King's Spinster Bride by Ruby Dixon. I rated this 5 stars. This is a book about Hala and Mathior. Hala was the princess of like this kingdom, and Mathior was her father, the king, kidnapped him when he was a boy to use against his father, which was like the ruler of like the Cyclops territory, because they're called Cyclops because they take one eye out for like their god or gods to prove like how strong they are, and it's just like something they do for sacrifice. All the warriors take one eye, and they are coming to take over Hala's, father's kingdom, and she protects him. He's only like 9, and she has to go into like hiding because he spares her life because she did rescue him and she protected him from being killed from her father's men. And so then she has to go into hiding, and then he grows up. He becomes the leader of, his people, and he comes back because he never forgot her, and he said, I want her as my bride. So he comes back to find her, and because he never forgot her for the, what she did for him all those years ago. So this was a really cool read from Ruby Dixon. Of course, I love her Alien series and her Dragon series, but this one was really good and I really enjoyed it. The next one is another book by Ruby Dixon. This is Callie's Catastrophe. This is number 9 in the Ice Homes series. This is the spin-off series from the Ice Planet Barbarians. So they are, on this frozen planet with these aliens. This human girl, is trying to adapt to this whole new planet, and she is just really bitter because she has just lost everything back home. She misses her family, and she resonates with one of the aliens, Imtok. Some of these pronouncing of the alien names are really hard, so forgive me if I'm ever wrong, but she is just like denying their when they have a Kui put in, to help them, live on this earth, or live on that planet. And they have resonated to each other, which kind of means, like they're mates. But she is denying it. And, he's just like, why don't you give in? It's just like, this is all he's ever known. But, she's in this new place, this new territory, and it's just a lot for her to take in and accept that this is now her new reality. And he kind of kidnaps her on to go to this cave away from everybody else to see if, just the two of them alone, if she will finally accept him. And then while they're away together, they get to know each other better, and they form a friendship through that, which then leads to more. But it was a really good book. I rated it 5 stars. Then I read Bring Down the Stars by Emma Scott. This is the first book in the Beautiful Hearts series. This is, it's a duet. It's Bring Down the Stars is the first one. And this is about Connor and Weston have been friends since they were children, because Weston's dad left when he was little, and he abandoned him and his mom and his sisters. And he has been carrying this throughout, ever since he was a little boy into adulthood, this abandonment issue. And he started going to this private school, and that's where he met Connor, because he was just really bullied and Connor stood up for him. And he and Connor have just had a really great friendship. They're best friends. They go to college together, and there they meet Autumn. She goes to college there, and she and Weston have an undeniable chemistry. Like, what they like the same things, but she met Connor first, and he asked her out, and Weston really wanted to, but he felt like he needed to let Connor have this chance, because he felt like he owed him, and because Connor has done so many things for Weston. And so Connor and Autumn start dating, even though Weston and Autumn have this undeniable chemistry. And it is like a love triangle. And then it goes into then Connor and Weston join the military, and they are sent overseas. So that is where like the first book ends, and then you have the second book. I read the second book, which is Long Live the Beautiful Hearts, but I can't tell you what it's about, because it would be spoiling the plot, everything. So just know that these are very emotional, hard-hitting stories, but they're so good. What these characters go through and who she ultimately chooses is just, the series was so good. I've loved everything Emma Scott writes. I just don't think she could write a bad book. But needless to say, I rated both of these 5 stars. Then I read Ball Peen Hammer by Lauren Rowe. I am working my way through the Morgan Brothers series. This is the 3rd book in that series, and I absolutely love this book. This book follows the brother Keen. He's like the goofball of the bunch, and he is just so adorable. I loved him. I loved his book. I loved his story. And I love the first book so much, which was Hero, which followed the oldest son in the Morgan Brothers. But I don't know who I love more, Colby or Keen. I just loved it so much. Keen is a male stripper, and because he used to be a baseball player, but he injured his shoulder, and now he can no longer play baseball professionally. And so he is a male stripper, and he's very good at what he does. He is very outgoing. He knows what he's very good at what he does. But he also has like to recharge, so sometimes he like disappears from everybody for a few days, because he just has to kind of recharge from, and he lives with his roommate, which is Xander. He and Xander are like, they have a bromance. That is really cute to see, and I can't wait to read Xander's book, which is the next one. But Keen's brother Dax, which is the one that is in the band or has his own band, he promised his parking space to a girl named Maddie, and she is actually sisters with one of their friends. Maddie is moving. So Keen's brother Dax promises this girl Maddie, because she is moving, out of state, that he, her sister is really worried about her driving by herself such a long distance. And so Dax steps in and says, hey, my brother Keen will ride with you. You'll road trip together. And so Maddie is trying to get in touch with Keen. Keen is not answering her phone calls, and it's because he has no idea that his brother, volunteered for him to do this, because he doesn't ever answer his phone. He is just not a phone talker, which I totally understand. I hate phone calls. So, and he only does text, but even then it's kind of spotty, because there are just days where he's just like, lays low, turns his phone off, doesn't want any contact with anybody, because he just has to recharge. And so finally, he and Maddie meet up. To take this road trip together, and they just hit it off. Like, after their misunderstanding, of course. But they realize, that, he comes to know her, and she comes to know him. And of course they share like hotel rooms and along the way, and they have a really fun road trip together, and they start to develop feelings. And I loved Keen and Maddie's story. It is just so good. I rated it 5 stars, of course. And this might be my favorite. I don't know. I think Ball Peen Hammer and Hero really tie for me, but still, this one was amazing. And then I read Only When It's Us by Chloe Leese. This is #1 in the Bergman Brothers series. I've heard so much about this series lately, and so I'm like, well, I have to pick up the first book. So I did. I read it. I rated it 5 stars. This is about Ryder. He is deaf, and he is going to college. He was a soccer player, but he had to quit because he got this sickness which made him deaf. And he can hear a little bit out of one ear, but it's only certain things he can hear. And he meets Willa, and she is a soccer player for their college that they're going to. And, she has dreams of becoming, a professional soccer player. And they really are enemies at first because he has the class notes and she needs them. And the professor tells her to ask him for him, and she asks him, but he doesn't see her ask, because he can only, he knows he can read lips, but she wasn't facing him, and she just thought that like he blew her off and totally ignored her. So she instantly became mad at him and was ready to start a fight. And, finally she realizes later that he's deaf, and she feels horrible about it. But then they kind of have like this frenemies type of relationship, because they are like, they have to study, they have to work on this class project together. And so they're spending a lot of time with each other, but they still they banter back and forth. And it's just how they communicate. And I really like their relationship. There was a really sad part in this book with loss of a loved one, so that was really hard to read about, but it was very emotional in that sense, but so good. I really love this first book in the series. I rated it 5 stars. And then I read 2 books for the Historical Romance Readathon. If you want to watch that vlog, I'll have it listed below. But the first book I read for the readathon was A Notorious Vow by Joanna Shupe. This is the 3rd book in the 400 series. This is about Oliver and Christina. Oliver is deaf, and he his dog alerts him one day that that he needs to show him something. So his dog takes him to this girl who is like passed out in his garden, and she's hit her head on something, and he takes her inside, and she realizes he's deaf because he's signing. And they have a doctor look at her and everything, and she just like fell and bumped her head, and because the dog scared her. And he tells her that he that's his property, and he'd rather her not come on it anymore, walk on it through the gardens, and that she loves to walk through the gardens. So then she just kind of tries to do it secretly, to try to stay out of his way. But he finds her again, and he's like, wait, I told you not to come back. But she's pretty insistent that she is just gonna stay out of his way and walk through his gardens. And so they start to form up kind of a friendship, because he's really a loner, because he has tried to be in society and mingle with other people, but there's always people that talk about behind his back and thinks that he is just ignorant, and that he's not that he's insane, and he doesn't have the mental capability just because he's deaf. And Christina is her parents have lost their money, and they want her to marry somebody wealthy, and they are trying to get her to marry this horrible man. And so she runs away from that, and she's caught in this situation, and then he tells her parents that he would marry her. And so it is kind of like a marriage of convenience and just, you know, to get her parents off her back because they're horrible to her. And then he is taken because his cousin is trying to steal his money, you know, his inheritance and his land and his house and everything. So he convinces these people that he's insane, so he's thrown into an insane asylum, and it's just so much going on. And so they have to rescue him from that. And this was a lovely book. I loved it so much. I love the deaf representation in it, and it just really hurt my heart that what people with disabilities had to go through back then. It was just heartbreaking, and I really enjoyed this book by Joanna Shupe. It's so the first book I read by her, and I gave it 5 stars. Then I read The Madness of Lord Ian Mackenzie by Jennifer Ashley. I, of course, rated this one 5 stars as well. This is the hero has autism. It's never said on page that he has autism, but you just kind of know by the way he acts and the way he does things. But he is one of the Mackenzie brothers, and he meets this lady. He meets this widow named Beth, and she is engaged to this man, and he knows that this man, you know, is a liar and cheater, and so he lets her know, so she cuts off the engagement. And then Ian, you know, he has to have her, so he asks her for her hand in marriage, and she's like, no, I don't need to be married. And so he starts to pursue her, and every chance he gets, you know, he is when they're around each other, he is actively pursuing her. And there's this mystery in the book too, because they're trying to pin a murder on him, and so she is trying to figure out what went wrong, or, you know, what happened, and clear his name. And so this was a really wonderful book. I love the autism aspect in this book. And of course, also, again, you know, it is sad how people were treated back then with disabilities. They were thought insane and not, you know, capable, not competent. And so it just, I have such a soft spot in my heart for people with disabilities, and it just hurts to think about what these people went through back then, that their rights and everything that we take for granted today. The next one is A Lesson in Blackmail by K.D. I won't even try to pronounce the last name. It's Robicchaux. I'm not even going to try to pronounce it because I know I'm going to get it wrong. This is a book that Heather from Heya Booktubes recommended. And when she recommended, I immediately had to read it. So I did. I rated it 5 stars. This is about Nate and Evie. Evie works at this school as the librarian, and Nate is a senior at school. He only has a few more months of school to go before he graduates. He's 18, and he's kind of like picked on her because she's very submissive. She's very shy and just you know, kind of on the edge of her seat. And whenever he goes into the library, he always, like, you know, intimidates her. She is part of a BDSM club, and he finds out that she's going to it, and she's actually a sub, and he has never heard of this before, and he is very much intrigued with this because, you know, he has had these urges and fantasy type longings, and that he's never been able to play out before. And so she kind of starts teaching him, and this is their relationship. So this is kind of taboo and age gap, and I really liked it. I really liked this book a lot. I'm so glad that Heather recommended it, and I read it, and I rated it 5 stars. Then I read Justice for Mickey by Susan Stoker. This is the second book in the Badge of Honor Texas Heroes series. I have read quite a few books in this series, and I've loved them. These follow these police officers, which they're actually like Texas Rangers and FBI officers and firefighters in the series from this town in Texas. And this is each of their romances. And it's usually with them falling in love with a girl and then something happening to the girl, so they have to step in and help rescue the girl, which I love, love, love those type of situations. This one, the hero is undercover at this motorcycle club, and he's trying to take down this club, and because they're trying to get rid of drugs in their town and throughout this area. And so he is undercover as like, he's FBI, but he's undercover as a member of this motorcycle club, or a prospect really, because they have to prospect before they can become an official member. The hero, which is Mickey, her sister is starting to date the president of the club, and so she's very worried about her. And so that is how they meet, because he's like put on task to keep the sister Mickey out of the way of her trying to interfere with her sister dating the president of this motorcycle club, because they're wanting to introduce her to drugs and get her and her friends hooked on them, so that way they are buying them, and you know, it's just another way for them to get money. And so he starts, you know, he wants to protect her, but as he gets to know her and he starts dating her, that he knows that, you know, he is falling in love with her. And of course, it all comes out in the end about him being undercover there. And it was good. It was not the best one that I've read in the series, but I still rated it 4 stars. It was good. I did like I liked their relationship, that, you know, I liked them getting to know each other as they were dating, but I knew the misunderstanding was coming, and that was just kind of irritating because I could see it coming the whole time, and it was just kind of predictable. So it wasn't the best in the series, but I still rated it 4 stars. Then I read A 5-Minute Life by Emma Scott. This was so good. I loved it so much. This is about a girl named Thea, and she is this amazing painter, and the book starts out where she and her parents are going to her sister's graduation, and she and her parents have a car wreck on the way there. Her sister is in another car, and her parents die, and Thea has damage to her brain, and so she has this severe case of amnesia where she can only remember 5 minutes at a time. So like her brain resets every 5 minutes, and she has to go into this institute, you know, this place where they take care of people with brain injuries. And Jim comes to work there, and he has grown up in the foster care system. He's never known a real family. He's never even had anybody actually tell him that they love him. He's never been cared for in that type of way. And he meets Thea, and he can automatically tell that there's more to Thea than everybody lets on, because, you know, they kind of downplay it like, well, there's nothing else that they can do for her. That it just is what it is. But he knows that she is still in there, and that she wants, you know, she's fighting to get out, and she still, they give her pen and paper, and she draws these intricate drawings, but they're through like word chains, and the word chains always have words in it to like she's lonely, or she's fighting, or she's, you know, she's in pain, and he just can tell. So he fights for her to get the help that she needs. And so they discover a way to bring her back, you know, that she can remember again. And so they go off together to New York, because this is always where she wanted to go. And something happens. So I don't want to say much more than that, but just know that this does end on a happily ever after, but they do go through some heartbreaking times together. But this was so good. I just love, like I said, I love Emma Scott. I love everything she writes, and I rated this one 5 stars. Then I read Elements of Retrofit by N.R. Walker. This was recommended by Jen at the Book Refuge. I'm really glad I read this one. I can't wait to read on in the series. This was number 1 in the Thomas Elkin series. This is an MM romance and an age gap. So Thomas is a architect, and Cooper is one of his son's friends, and he comes to work as an intern at his company because Cooper is wanting to be, he's interning to be an architect as well. And as they're working over, the months that he's there, they're getting to know each other, and there is an attraction there, and they have this relationship, but they have to hide it because, it would be against the rules for them because since they work together. And of course, there is a big age difference there as well. So it was just really good, a really good first book to the series, and I can't wait to read on in that series. And I rated it 4 stars. And the last book I read for January was The Doctor by Nikki Sloan. I've seen this recommended a lot, but Bree said that she would compare it to Birthday Girl. So of course I had to read it. I have to read anything that even comes close to Birthday Girl. So this doesn't have quite as much story depth and plot to it as Birthday Girl had, but it is really good. I rated it 4 stars. This is #1 in the Nashville Neighborhood series, and this follows Greg and Cassidy. Cassidy has been dating her boyfriend Preston, but he is just not the guy that she used to know. He doesn't really make time for her anymore. She's not important to him, and she is just fed up with how he is treating her, and so she breaks up with him. He and Preston's dad start having a thing. And so this is about their relationship. Of course, this is more steamy than Birthday Girl. But this is about her and her relationship with her ex-boyfriend's dad. And it was really good. I really enjoyed it. I rated it 4 stars as well. So those are all 13 books that I read in the month of January. Let me know what you read in January. And if you've read any of the ones that I read, what do you think about them? I hope you guys have a great day, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.